Welcome. In this episode of the channel, Mystery Yonder, we will still talk about ghosts, but, unlike the video on the apparitions of spirits that we recommend you see by clicking on the appropriate link at the end of this video, this time we will talk not only about simple ghost visions. We will show you terrifying evil entities, physical attacks by ghosts on people captured by CCTV. The videos that follow are the collection of the scariest videos on the web, which include the most terrifying physical attacks by evil entities ever recorded. Not recommended for the faint of heart. The chart as usual is presented starting from the least scary video to the most terrifying. To follow until the end, if you can. Without further ado, here is Ghosts. Physical attacks by evil entities, the 10 most terrifying videos. Enjoy the video. In this footage you can see a little boy watching the television alone in the living room. The boy is hit by an invisible entity, making him jump off the plate he was holding in his hands. In another video, also taken by the internal cameras of the apartment, the boy is probably with his older brother in front of the TV. And this time the camera is disturbed by a white mist that obscures the image. We are in what appears to be the inner courtyard of a building. A man intent on texting with his mobile phone notices the sudden movement of a chair not far from him. A few seconds later, all the chairs in the frame will be thrown away, including the one where the man is sitting in, this knocking him to the ground. In this video, we see a guy trying to tune his bike in what appears to be his private driveway. Apart from the mechanical problems of the motorcycle and perhaps the noise of its engine, nothing else seems to bother the boy. Suddenly a shadow appeared and violently attacks the biker with what appears to be a punch, or perhaps a strong push. The boy, dazed, falls to the ground and the ghost vanishes into the air. Take a closer look at the slow-motion video. In the next video, recorded in April 2017, a boy appears in the frame of the surveillance cameras placed outside a private house complex. The The boy's intent is to open the door of the house, but after a few turns of the key and without having opened it yet, an entity appears passing through the door still closed and then violently pushes the boy and knocks him to the ground. The slow motion is disturbing. The boy, once recovered from the shock, runs away terrified. The internal surveillance cameras are installed at a corridor. The corridor is crossed by a man in a hood. Halfway down the corridor, a black and evil entity appears to violently push the man to the ground, dragging him by one leg for a few meters. After a few scary seconds, the man is freed and has the opportunity to run away. The ghost instead dissolves into a black cloud. 2015, and we are outside a club. The club is monitored by the local CCTV cameras. A man, in order to find a bit of quietness and silence to be able to talk on the phone, leaves the club, followed shortly after by a friend of his. During the phone call, the man suddenly seems to be grabbed by an invisible entity in his right leg. The dazed man falls to the ground terrified. The friend goes to his rescue, trying to keep him, avoiding him being dragged away, but at a certain point he notices the entity's presence. Perhaps he can see its features and terrified runs away into the club. Once inside the club, he asks for help. Maybe he calls the police, looking out of the club again. But at that moment, the man previously dragged was thrown violently against him, making a flight of a few meters and crashing dangerously into the entrance of the club. Terrifying. Again, the internal corridor of a building filmed by surveillance cameras. A young man walks along it and then has to turn the corner to the left. A ghost, an evil entity, pushes him against the wall, lifting him from the ground, and then hold him by one leg, dragging the man away behind the corner of the dark corridor. The boy tries to resist with all his strength by grabbing the floor. And after a few terrifying seconds of struggle, he manages to free himself and then runs away in panic. The ghost follows him for a moment, perhaps to try a second attack. and then it vanished away. A real horror movie. A woman is sitting on what appears to be a company canteen. She is at the phone, perhaps waiting a few minutes before going home. While she is busy in the telephone conversation, a chair in front of her suddenly moves for no apparent reason. The terrified woman jumps back from fear, and then observes the paranormal activity taking place in front of her. In panic, the victim tries to escape by attempting a sudden run from the room. But at the same time, the evil entity blocks her way using tables and chairs to prevent the way out. The woman, visibly scared, takes a few steps back and then loses consciousness from shock. A creepy paranormal experience. Nobody wants to be in her shoes. What's more quiet and peaceful than a child's bedroom? Generally nothing, but not for this unfortunate child. The baby is dragged by one foot by an invisible force. Terrified, the child tries to grab the bed and the floor as best she can, in order to struggle this evil spirit. The child, desperate, calls her father for help, but he is dragged into another room of the house, which is soon closed violently by the ghost. A real nightmare that could take away the sleep for a lifetime. We are in Jamaica, on the district of Spanish Town. A little boy has complained for days of being physically attacked by a paranormal entity, which pushes and pulls him. The images are impressive, even if the spirit actually is not visible. The boy and his family are visibly terrified. But let's stop for a moment. Considering our top 10 and previous videos, your eyes are trained in observing paranormal events and perhaps to distinguish the likely ones from the obvious fake. How do you consider this video? Do you believe in the paranormal activities that haunt this poor boy? Well, these paranormal activities were recorded live by a local TV, with the testimony of dozens of those present and the tears of the boy's family. The boy claims to know who owns the spirit that haunts him. The young boy would be haunted by the ghost of a peer who died sometime before, with whom he would have had a spiteful relationship.
Watch again as our news crew filmed the second incident similar to the accounts we were given. This time, the boy claims he sees the ghost standing near the wall and goes over to stand next to it.
The desperate relatives hope that the paranormal activities will cease as soon as possible, perhaps with the help of an exorcism. Terrifying.
So, is the Martin Street duppy real, or are the events the expert acting of a mischievous child? Kalila Enriquez, CBN News.
And we came to the conclusion of this video. I guess each of you has your own idea. Leave it in a comment and tell me, is the legend real? Give a like and subscribe to the channel, Mystery Iomba. Other videos are coming soon. Don't forget to share these fascinating stories with friends. See you at the next mystery.